Happy New Year! This is
The,
Lily Tang Williams' first YouTube video for 2023. Let me give a quick update on where I have been, what I have been doing since I did not win my Republican primary for Congress in New Hampshire 2nd Congressional District. I wanted to thank all my supporters, donors, audience, and volunteers out there. Even though I did not win after outspent 5-1, 4-1, but I sure had lots of fun and met lots of people, had lots of conversations, and enjoying the debates and getting my messages out. So ever since I finished primary in September, I traveled to 4 states to give talks, interviews, even be a keynote speaker for Heritage Action and Sentinel Summit in Texas. That including US PI local event for parents and school board members and candidates in Michigan. Went to Austin, Texas for an interview and traveled to Texas and to speak at the Sentinel Summit. And also had over 1 month mixed family vacation with business in Colorado, Wyoming, and Orlando, Florida, and Villages area. So lots of friends and families. I had a great time. Of course, second vacation was with my husband, John. So I hope you all had a wonderful Christmas and the New Year. Now it's 2023. As I updated in my email to everybody before Christmas, I mentioned it. Even though I did not win my race, but my fight is continuing. I'm answer my calling, my mission to step up, to speak the truth, to continue share my stories, and to warn people what is happening in this country. I just cannot focus on myself, my business, my family, and do nothing when I see the writings on the wall. I'm not alone. I'm not alone in this. Today, I have the pleasure to introduce you my friend, my volunteer, also my co-host, Amani. And she has amazing stories and amazing experience in both countries. And she has been really on the same page with me. We created locals.com on the locals immigrants community. This immigrants community is in welcoming everybody who is interested in coming to listen to immigrant stories and to share our native country culture, family, customs, and to draw some similarities from what happened to us in our native country to what's happening in our new beloved country called America. So immigrants community, find me on locals, Lily Tang Williams, and our YouTube videos will be going there every time we make something. We would love for you to become a supporter for $5 a month and to all of the world to continue to tell our immigrant stories like what we did last year for 10 weeks. But now instead of me talking, I have other immigrants coming join me. I have my great co-host Amani here. So let me take a few minutes to introduce her. And Amani actually was born and raised in the same province like me, Sichuan. And after she was born after Mao's era ended. So she's a lot younger than me, but she was born right after Mao's Cultural Revolution and lived there for 30 years. So she lived in China a lot longer than I had. Despite the harsh living conditions for her and oppressive environment, she thrived in school and graduated as a top foreign language student from a university and was admitted to a multilingual studio radio station, which is a part of the Chinese government central propaganda ministry. Just that experience alone will have lots of interesting stories for you. So after 8 years working there, Amani was determined to leave China to seek new life in America. She managed to come in 2009, which is like I came here in 1988. So she got to stay in China, knew a lot more about more recent events than me. Then she came here, landed in San Francisco, a TV station, and worked there for 3 years. After 3 years, she said, this is kind of like China. So she said, I'm not going to stay there. So she moved to Colorado with her family. And recently, she worked as a reading tutor for a local elementary school in Colorado. and an unbelievable experience that compelled her to speak out and share her stories and to expose what's going on also inside of our classrooms. Amani worked as editor and a journalist for a popular English language magazine in Beijing before she left China in 2009. She has been a translator and contributed to different translation projects. She enjoys reading, writing, and creating art and craft. What a bio. And it is my pleasure to introduce my supporters, subscribers, and to Amani. Welcome, Amani. Thank you for being my co-host.
Hi, Lily. Thank you for having me here. I'm honored to join you to be on this show to tell our stories.
And tell us a little bit about, when you were born in China, even after Mao's Cultural Revolution, what was your life like?
I would say was probably the living conditions were probably a little bit better than yours because I was born a year after Mao had already died and Cultural Revolution had already ended, and there was a sense of normal society that was basically restored to the people's homes and work. So, but still, the living conditions were extremely primitive, and basically, I think that level of poverty is pretty unimaginable to Americans here. Say, like, I lived in a 2-room apartment that was designated by my father's work. He worked in a university, and it was just 2 rooms for a family of 4, extremely small. And so there was like no furbishing. There's no such a thing. Like, we had no concept of carpets or hardwood floors, or it was all concrete, nothing, with a massive window. And the bathrooms were outside, basically a smelly hole on the ground, shared by like 3 or 4 families. And we had there was no like actual kitchen. There was like a small room designated to be a kitchen, but it was really just a tiny little room with a gas stove, and that's about it. And there was nowhere to wash or bathe. So my father actually, he was a very handy man, so he actually created his own washing place. Like, there was a faucet for running water, so he used plasters and cement, and he created a small bathtub, and that's all just concrete. So yeah, life was very difficult. We had to basically save every grain of rice that we had. Basically, food was scarce and precious, and we were trained as children to never waste food, because even though people had food, it was very precious. Like, I remember if I dropped 1 grain of rice at dinner time, my father would scold me and told me to pick it up and eat it, because salaries were so low, they only had barely enough to feed the entire family. And obviously clothing was extremely scarce. Like, we had 1 set of summer clothes and 1 set of winter clothes, and we would get new clothing during the New Year celebration, and that was like a luxury for most of kids to have. So that was basically how we grew up. And as 80s like progressed with the opening and reform policy, where China basically restored the free market economy, so life started to improve a little bit. Eventually, in the middle of 80s, we started to have TV, eventually a refrigerator where we could actually store food. Otherwise, before that, we couldn't even store food. Like, we had to eat what was there on that day, or else it would go bad. And by the time I went off to college, that would be mid-90s, 1995, we could afford basically we could afford mountain bikes for the kids, and life was getting a lot better. And
So when you say save every piece of rice, and when I grew up under Mao during his Cultural Revolution, of course we lived on food rationing coupons based on your family mom dad positions inside the factory and the party. And then we were told, of course, you got to not waste at all, not to complain. And even though we were hungry all the time, because Taiwanese people are suffering, they're starving, and the 2/3 of the world population were starving. we should be grateful for the party and for Chiang Mai mouth. So I was a little girl. I always say, oh, I should not complain, even though my stomach was growing, like, and even though, your life condition was a little bit better improvement than mine, because we shared like one bathroom, one hole on the ground for all the 8 families in the community, like row house. So were you living under, even after Mao died, the Cultural Revolution ended in 1976 when he died, and you were born after that, were you subject to also similar food rationing and coupons from local government with your family?
That was still like the food stamps, the ration stamps still existed, and up until I think mid 80s or even late 80s, that was still a major way of distributing resources. I remember when I was a child, my parents would hide these food rationing coupons or stamps like in layers and layers of handkerchiefs, and they would hide them in deep into the closets just so they don't get stolen, because those coupons are more important than money, because you may not be able to buy with money you may not be able to buy like stuff like eggs, oil, watch. Like every item had a specific coupon for it. Like you need an oil coupon to buy oil, and you need a bike coupon to buy a bike. So if you're saving up to buy a bike, even if you have the money, you wouldn't be able to buy it because you don't have the coupon rations by the government for it. So
correct. We had the coupons for fabrics. If your
mhm,
family want to buy a piece of fabric to make new clothes, if you
mhm,
did not have the coupons, basically push us to go to the black market where prices were higher.
mhm,
And that's why I always tell people in this country that they, under that kind of a system, central control planning, the government owns everything. Every brand is just one brand by the government. It's just not enough of anything. And so you're right. Even though sometimes you had money, then you couldn't buy those ration items because government says so. You can only have a coupon to buy this. Um, so even though your parents' positions, probably your dad probably were higher position than my parents, who were working for bottom of the food chain workers. So we were really hungry enough. But you said after Deng Xiaoping's economic reform, which is allowed some people get rich first. So private entrepreneurs start to merge, and people were encouraged to, hey, you can get rich if you just start your own business, leave your state factory jobs. And I remember we have a term called 下海, like the going to the sea. Going to the sea means leave your state job and start your own business. The first guy in my neighborhood started his own restaurant business. He was the first one who got rich in the 80s. And people all thought, are you sure you want to do that? Oh my God, you might not have income, you might not survive. But I saw him with my own eyes. He was the first guy got rich. Did you have anybody that time after the economic reform to actually kind of become an entrepreneur trying to start something on their own, which is better pay than their old state jobs?
yeah, tons of them. Like when I didn't know anybody personally because I was young, but I knew that my classmate's father, for example, who opened a small duck restaurant, and so he just started selling these roast ducks. Like my father would go there on the weekends and to buy a roast duck, and that would be the treat for the whole family. And I remember hearing adults talking about him and say how he basically made the whole business thrive. And yeah, and he became like we called it 万元户, like 10,000 yuan owner. And so he actually made that much money in like mid 80s. It was very impressive. And yeah.
Wow, that's cool. So what made you to trying to go to college and study a foreign language and Arabian language, but not English?
Yeah, that was a funny story because when I was in high school, my family was struggling, not for economic issues, but there were some economic issues, but also like my parents just had were just struggling with their marriage. So like nobody was basically paying attention to me when I was filling out the college entrance applications. So I just wanted to do something different. And so when I saw that Beijing Language and Culture University offers Arabic as a major, I thought this is something I had never heard of anyone doing. So I'm going to do it. so I filled out the application, and yeah, I succeeded in the college entrance exam, and I was admitted. And yeah, by then, my mother was actually a little upset. She was like, I wish you had filled out French or English or something, or German or something like Arabic. Who would go to, who would want to take up Arabic? But by then it was too late anyway. I was already admitted it. So yeah, so I
Wow.
went to Beijing for college for that.
So you wanted to go Beijing from Sichuan?
Yes.
Because, yeah, you were eager to leave Sichuan to go explore China at least.
Yeah, and also like Beijing is the capital of China. Like growing up, like we all grew up, listening and singing the song. Like I love Beijing Tiananmen. It's like yeah, it was a kind of indoctrination in some ways that it is just the sacred capital of our nation, and that everyone would, as a young child, you would want to dedicate your life to serve your motherland and go to Beijing and do your best. And that's what I wanted to do at the time.
Yeah, I could go to Beijing too. When my parents are illiterate, they could not help me with my decision what college to go to at all. After and I had to choose between Beijing and Shanghai to go study law before I took the nationalized college exam, entrance exam. So I just picked, my top one as Shanghai Fudan University. And because I wanted to go to Beijing too, but I was told, you're from Chengdu. Beijing people eat lots of bread and corn, sweet, and you want to eat rice and more southern food, you better go to Shanghai. And the weather is not as dry as, also cold as Beijing. So I picked Shanghai. Like usual, I pick all out of state, out of province colleges because I was trapped in Chengdu for 17 years of my life. I cannot wait to get out, right? So it's like, hey, further away is good. So what was your college like in 4 years in study? I mean, you studied, of course, you majored a lot less political than my law major. For 4 years college, you were supposed to focus on the Arabian language. What was it like to study language?
It was actually a good experience. It was actually in college that I started to have confidence in myself, and I was good at it. And Beijing Language and Culture University is still probably primarily a school that mostly teach foreign students Chinese. So like if like students from America, from Europe, from other countries coming to China to learn Chinese, they will have to go to Beijing Language and Culture University, which is where I attended school. So my campus was like, at the time when I attended school there, it was 3/4 foreigners and 1/4 Chinese. So I was basically in an environment where like I get to see people from all over the world, like literally all around the world, pretty much like from 200 countries. Like students from 200 countries were there when I was there. And the Chinese.
What years were that? From what year to what year you were in Beijing College?
That was from 1995 to 1999.
Oh, wow. Yeah, 90s was actually a pretty good time for Chinese economic reform and opening up and foreigners coming and that's great. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a fun experience because I didn't just get to meet people from Arab countries, and I got to learn their culture, and I made some really good friends there. And I also got, because three of my roommates in the college dormitory, they all majored in Korean language. So I actually met some Korean people, and it was just really fun. And it was an experience that basically, I think, laid the foundation for me to be open-minded to other people's culture, to other people's perspectives. And yeah, I remember I was tutoring Chinese to a student from Thailand, and she would challenge me occasionally politically. She would ask me like, "What do you think of Taiwan? Do you think Taiwan is part of China?" And I would think, I would give her answers like, I don't have an opinion because, what does being part of China mean? It's like, do they speak the same language? Are they part of the same system? And I did tell her that I believe that, it should be up to Taiwanese people. And she was very impressed. And she was like, I hope the Communist Party is not listening because they're not going to like your answer. But that was a time when, it was actually more open. Like you can actually talk to these foreign students about these topics and not get afraid that they might report you or anything like that.
So I know it's like, oh, we dare not to say anything, not politically correct,
Mm-hmm.
and so you were not PC, but hey, that time it was okay. Even 80s when I was in college, it was like the cultural renaissance. We were actually going to coffee shops, like university campus. Some students started a salon coffee shop. We were discuss about China's history, system, Western system, and the democracy, and I think all that background of in the 80s information led to the 1989 Tiananmen Square students' massive protests, for democracy, for freedom, and want to economical reform plus political reform. But of course, we all know what happened that time. So after the 4 years college, how did you get to work for this, the Chinese government central propaganda ministry, 中宣部, that's the Chinese Communist propaganda department. So how did you end up to have that job?
Well, I went to work for a radio station that's subordinate to the ministry. It was like one of the three major propaganda outlets in central government. There's CCTV and there's Xinhua News, and the third one is the multilingual radio station that I went to work for, called China Radio International. So it was a radio station that was founded under Premier Zhou's back in Zhou Enlai, under his directive, to basically its mission is to promote the socialist agenda to foreign countries. So it has about, I don't remember, I think 45 languages, and it's like it produces these radio shows through shortwave and basically promotes our government's narrative to all these other countries. So when I was in the senior year in college, that was the year when the Arabic department of this radio station was in need of more people, and so they actually came to our college and talked to us and says there is an opening, two openings actually. If you're interested, you can come. We will be having an open exam, and you will be coming to the radio station with all the other students from other universities on this stage and take the exam, and we'll take the best students. So I went when on the date of the exam, I went with 20 others from Peking University, from Beijing Foreign Language University. There were 20 of us from different universities, all majored in Arabic. So we went to the radio station, we took the exam. It was a all-day exam. Like there's writing, speaking, communication, listening, and interview, face-to-face interview with their employee from an Arab country. So yeah, after a whole day of exam, a couple of weeks later, I heard from them that I basically scored on top of everybody else. I was far ahead. The other 19 students were like nowhere near my level. But here's the scrub. I'm not a Communist Party member. So I was not a Communist Party member. So they were hesitating in employing me. They were considering another girl from Peking University because she was a Communist Party member. But another week after, I heard news that girl, the Communist Party member girl from Peking University, she took another job somewhere else. So they decided to take me.
Wow.
So that was the story.
Wow, that just like me, graduated in 1985 from law school with a college degree. They needed us badly to work there because our law department was brand new, first graduation class of 60 people. It's the same thing to work in law department, which is a law school. It's very political, and we all were required to say, hey, if we offer you a job in law school, you have to apply. You must apply to join the Communist Party. Otherwise, it's like, hey, we were told the law is a tool to govern the masses. Where your loyalty otherwise? So it is true. We had to all apply and become the party member. Then they put me on probational status, observe for a year to see how well you perform. And that was like another story. So you were pressured then during all those working years, you need to join the party? I mean, did they approach you, trying to persuade you, or even pressure you to join?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was so stubborn. I mean, I would have joined the party if I wanted to climb the ladder. You know, if I wanted to be promoted at that radio station. But only I kind of just like became disillusioned very quickly after I started working there, because immediately I saw the system is not what I expected. So I had no intention of working there my whole life. But yeah, like even just the first year, I remember the supervisor of the department came to me and said, a little comrade, let's talk. Yeah, so basically told me, oh, everyone is impressed by your skills in terms of your language skills and your commitment to working hard. Everybody sees that you're working hard, but that's not enough. You must be politically progressive. You must demand to improve yourself politically. That is why we want you to submit an application to join the Communist Party. And at the time, I was just like, I had no intention of joining the Communist Party. All I did was I just nodded, like, thank you, thank you, thank you for your admonition, thank you for your good advice. I remember it, but I did nothing. So yeah, for 8 years, I basically resisted that pressure, and I never did anything.
That
And
means no promotions, no
nope.
salary increases much.
Yeah. Oh, I suffered for it. Believe me. Did not only no promotions, no raise. I was constantly my pay was deducted, was cut down, and yeah, yeah, I was paid like the lowest in the department, despite the fact that I was doing the best job than everyone else. Admitted that I was doing the best job in the department, but I was always paid the lowest, always.
Always pay less
Mhm,
because you could not be part of the one party
mhm,
basic team. So
mhm.
what are some insightful information that you're willing to share with us? What are some of those roles when you work for the Chinese government when it comes to even your radio international? What are some rules you must stick to?
Well, the number one rule is that the party is always right. Like I remember when, like even at the orientation, like when we first started, we were literally told by our supervisors that the party is the brain of the nation. We're the tongue and the throat of the nation. That means mouthpiece. So we were not the brain of the nation. We're not allowed to think for ourselves. Our job was just to say what the party wanted us to say, make it more appealing, make it sound better. And so that was like the first session of training, that is that our job is not to find out facts or report news for ourselves. Our job is to say to the public what the party wants us to say. That was made very clear from day one. Um,
So let me ask you then, when you broadcast every day to international world, like where did you get the talking points, narratives? You basically just read it, right? I mean, you cannot be allowed to create your own. You don't have any rooms to be creative. So where did you get something on piece of paper from the top?
there was we got it from two sources. One is from Xinhua News Agency. Xinhua News is the top Chinese propaganda center basically, and our radio station had a computer terminal that was connected to the Xinhua News Agency. So the reports every day was already written for us. We just download it from them and translate them into Arabic and broadcast. And there is another source, which is the internal source, which is the radio station's own reporting center. And only trained journalists were allowed to write for them. So, like, if you want to become a reporter, writing articles of your own that will get approved by the radio station, you have to take this class for like a whole year or something to be trained. Yeah, to be trained to on how to write news reports, how to create propaganda. And so that is another news center. We have another computer terminal that's connected to the radio station's news center, where trained journalists would provide us with the news reports, and we do the same. We translate them and broadcast them.
So you were, of course, one of the propaganda arms of the central, propaganda ministry. So number one rule the party is always right. That just sounds like a 1984. And what is, I remember you mentioned that the second role is very interesting. I need you to tell people the second role that you must come.
Yeah, well, the second rule is like there are certain words and that you must use for certain topics. For example, when Dalai Lama has to be mentioned, for example, it's always the separatist, anti-China separatist Dalai Lama group. When Taiwan needs to be mentioned, you can never ever refer to it as a country, obviously. You can never ever refer to the president of Taiwan as the president. You just use the person's name. And like, yeah, and like very detailed rules like that. Like it's detailed down to like what word you can use for a certain person. Like Falun Gong.
That's a censored word. Of course, censored words then.
Yeah, it's very rigid. Like you can't, if you deviate any slightly from it, then it's, yeah, you get into trouble.
So were there any times you feel like that's a lie, that's not true, but nobody dared to say anything because you just tell every day with the same words, same lies, and then nobody challenges. So basically, it's like the lies are the truth.
Yeah, basically. When I first started, they put me on a news team. So every day it was the same. 30-minute long news report is always compiled of three parts. The first part is good news about China. Second part is the longest part is good news about China, what we have achieved, how happy people are. Second part is regional news about Arab nations, and so it's usually some Arab nations leaders having conferences with our leaders and all that. Third part is always bad news about the world. So all the rest of the world is living in the misery and disaster. So when that is repeated over and over and over again, every day it's the same pattern. It becomes like it became like not only boring, but like it's draining. It became like I was just like, this doesn't seem right. Something isn't right, because when you hear the word news, right? 新闻 in Chinese, 新闻 news, you would think it's something that doesn't happen every day. Otherwise, why would it be news, right? But so if it's we're trying so hard to put in the news that China is doing great, we're producing massive crops, we're producing massive steel, people are so happy, then how is that news? That just means maybe in reality people are not so happy. Maybe in reality people are not so grateful to the abundance of products that we produce. If you put it in the news, that means it doesn't happen every day. So for me, like, there's something just didn't feel right, and I with and with the labels like Dalai Lama is a separatist, anti-China powers, I started wondering, what did he actually say that made him a separatist? But like, they always use these labels over and over again, but they never give you the details of what he actually said that made him a separatist. And that made me start to question. I'm like, this is not news. This is not what I signed up for. It's propaganda. And obviously propaganda was completely okay back in China. That was, of course, it's the government's job to promote propaganda. So that part I did not wake up to, but I did feel like there was something wrong about it, but I couldn't pinpoint it. I couldn't tell what was actually wrong.
When you were young and you work for government, we were all raised to be patriots, love China, love the party almost unconditionally. And I mean, I was, of course, in the 90s and grew up during Mao's Cultural Revolution. So how many years down the road when you work there, then you start to feel like, I cannot continue work there. I got to get out. When did you wake up to that point? I mean, since we only have like a limited time left, I want to talk about your awakening moment to say, I got to manage to get out. And could you get out? I mean, were you allowed to leave? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it was about 2 years after I started working there in 2001, I would say, because after the first year, after they put me on the news team, I got so bored and just like, I don't want to work like this. This is not what I signed up for. So I asked to be transferred to a culture and music show, and just to stay away from all that pattern of propaganda. And I was granted. I was very happy. I loved culture. I loved Arab culture, the music, the dance, and everything. So I really just poured my heart and mind into it, and I did really well. I like just in a few months, the number of audience doubled. The listeners started to write me fan mail, and yeah, I even had a fan who walked all the way to the radio station to meet with me and told just so she could talk to me and tell me how much she enjoys my show. Like my show was like the happy hour of her daily life, and that yeah. So I was actually happy. I was finally happy. I was proud of myself. I worked so hard. Like I spent extra hours in the studio, and I was finally happy. I was like, okay, I could do this. I would stay away from the propaganda, but I could do this. This is something I could do for a long time. And then about a year after that, one day it was like a bunch of schools. I think Peking University students came to visit the radio station, and they all wanted to meet me. And they were like highly complimentary about my show, and they all loved me, and everyone but just expressed their admiration. And then my supervisor at the time, she was like, that was very impressive. You did all the students are our listeners. They all loved you, and they're all praising you. And the next day, my supervisor told me, Amani, we're gonna have to cut your payment down by a third. And she gave me a budget, and yeah, like a budget plan. And for my show, it was cut down by a third. Like she was paying me like 35 yuan per show. That's 50 minutes long. Um, and she was cutting it down to 25. I was like devastated. I was like, what? Like yesterday you were telling me everybody loved my show. The students came, the listeners came to show their admiration. Today you're telling me I need to be punished for it. And I was so shocked. I couldn't understand. Like I was like, so I'm like, did I do something wrong? Just tell me if I did something wrong. I will correct it, but do not use this to punish me. And then she got all defensive. She's like, how can you be so selfish? I didn't know you were so selfish. Like your show, yeah, you're doing a good job, but your show is paid more than the old comrades shows. That's unfair. And I was like, the old comrades shows are 10 minutes per show. My show is 5 times longer than that. And I've worked so hard on it. Like, why shouldn't I be paid more? And she's like, oh, that's just selfish. You've lost your spirit of giving and spirit of sacrifice. Our old comrades have worked here for the decades. They've never complained. They deserve to be paid more. And I was just speechless because um, that obviously was not right to me. But I couldn't find any argument to disagree with her. Like I couldn't find words that can basically dispute that argument, because what she said, ridiculous as it sounds, was what we grew up being brainwashed with. Like you cannot demand reward for your hard work, because everybody needs to be equal. Everybody needs to be treated the same, no matter how you shouldn't expect reward for doing a better job than everyone else.
Sounds like
So
equity.
equity, that's what
Equity.
that's exactly what it is. Equal outcome instead of
Doesn't
equal
matter you
opportunity.
hard or not, how much you contribute, your performance, and doesn't matter, right? That oh, that's tough. So that must
Yeah.
make you feel so bad.
Yeah, I was like, yeah. So after that, there was nothing I could do. So they cut my payment down. I was like, why should I work hard anymore? My hard work was punished. And despite what she says, what my supervisor said, in reality it was a punishment.
So you worked
um,
there for total 6 years in the music, section. How did you
uh,
work there for that long? Well,
well,
you're not allowed to leave, right?
yeah, I tried to leave after that, but I couldn't, because I had a 6-year contract, which it was called a service agreement with the radio station. So if I wanted to leave, for every year that I hadn't worked there, I had to pay 10,000 yuan, as compensation, as penalty.
Oh,
Yes. So 6 years contract, that means I would have had to pay. I By then I had worked 2 years, so I still would have to pay them 40,000 yuan, which I just didn't have. Like I was paid already very, very low.
but they were cutting
So
your salary payment. It's like the contract you pay did not stay the same, but they want your commitment stay the same. Do you feel like you were just kind of like slaves then?
yeah, yes, it was. That was when I felt, um, that I was not treated as, an employee, a worker, not even a worker. I felt like I was a slave. Like they basically they exploited me, and I was not even allowed to complain. Just
So
yeah.
6 years contract as employee, but did not specify your salary and benefits would stay the same at least, or even get a promotion. But instead, your term 6 years stay the same, but your salaries benefit did not stay the same. They got worse. But really that contract is basically restrict you, but not restrict them or hold them accountable, the Chinese government accountable at all.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh.
It's like I remember seeing that contract. There's like, I don't know, 50 items about the employees, or service members, responsibilities, and there's like 2 items about the radio station's responsibilities. And yeah, it's not an equal, yeah, it's not. It's basically selling myself to them.
Well, when I tried to get out of my assistant professor job in Shanghai University, and I did not have that kind of strict contract. It just I could not quit my job without my party boss permission, and to go apply for my private passport so I could, leave and come to United States for graduate school. So if you don't get the permission to quit, you cannot quit. If you did not get their permission to quit your job, go apply for your passport, then you could not apply for a passport. I feel like slave too, and I could not tell anybody because somebody can report to you, and so you had to hold inside. Did you feel same way? You had no one to trust, to talk to. You had to just eat it inside all by yourself because you couldn't trust anybody.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It was so depressing because everyone else, there, no one stood up for me. No one spoke out. Like at the time when my supervisor was telling me that they had to cut my pay down, everyone else was just sitting there silently. I'm sure they didn't agree, but no one would back me up. So I was all by myself. I was all alone. So yeah, after that, I did try to leave. Like I went on some interviews at some other organizations, and I didn't find anything that I liked. And also the people in those organizations, like for example CCTV, they had the same attitudes. Like if you come work for us, you belong to us. You have to, yeah, you have to keep your head down and work hard. And so it was the same kind of environment everywhere. So after a while, I decided I might have to leave China altogether to seek personal growth and development. So I applied to study in England, and I took an IELTS exam. I don't know if you're aware of that, but it's a kind of like TOEFL for studying in America. It was IELTS for UK and other Commonwealth countries. So I took an IELTS exam. I scored really high. I scored like 7.5. So with that, I applied for schools in England. I was admitted. Like they sent me admission letters to about 5 of them. So with that, I was hopeful. I could borrow money to quit. And go abroad and seek freedom. And so with that, I tried. After that, I became hopeful, and I tried to apply for a passport, like you did. And of course, I was denied. Even though by then, like 2001, private citizens were allowed to have private passports for travel and all that. But if you worked for a government organization, you will need that organization's stamp and signature of approval to apply for a private passport. And of course, I couldn't get that. And yeah, so
How
yeah,
did it
so
affect your health, like your happiness? For all those years, you feel like there's no way out.
yeah, I was very depressed after that. Became After that, I became like, I kind of just lived in despair. Like it's like there's no way to leave, and there's no way to enjoy myself. And if I stay, and there's no way to even just get fair treatment if I stay. So I became so depressed. I was a little suicidal. Like I was like just kind of like wallowing in self-pity every day. I would get on a subway train and just go anywhere, somewhere I don't know. I would just wander in the streets and crying. I did that for months and months. Yeah.
Oh.
And after that, one day I kind of just made up my mind. I made up my mind. I'm like, I have to leave China. And if by the time I turn 40, I'm still stuck here with no hope of escaping, I'm just going to take the ultimate way out and just end my own life. And I made that decision. And after that, I kind of just, I don't know, like, I mean, maybe perhaps the ultimate despair kind of set you free, because after that, I felt a kind of peace and calm because I've made that my ultimate backup plan, basically. So yeah,
Yeah,
after that,
but sorry,
Mhm.
you got my tears come out.
Oh,
It's like I cannot imagine what you want going through. How about your family? Like could they give you some emotional comfort and support so you did meet? Imagine, God, you took your own life. I it's like could you talk to them, get support?
well, I did, right? But I think, like I mentioned before, my parents were, they grew up in a very different time. They had very different points of view. So it was very difficult to try to make them understand that there's no way out. And like my father was like 100% Mao supporter. He until this day, I cannot talk to him about. I cannot be criticizing the government's doings, because everything the Communist Party does is right, is correct. Like for
Oh,
him,
very loyal, hardline Communist Party member.
yes, yeah. He joined the Communist Liberation Army when he was 15, and he's so grateful to that the Communist Party liberated him, even though despite the fact he almost starved to death during the Mao era. But that's a separate issue. So I couldn't really talk to him about it, because he would never understand, and all he would do was criticize me for wanting too much, for demanding rewards. For my mother was, on the other hand, she was a little better, but at the time she was not there. She couldn't really see how much I struggled to like adapt to this environment. Like, she did show some emotional support, like when my pay was cut down. But after that, there was nothing she could do, and there's no comfort that she could truly give me. Yeah. So
You were so alone. That's how
uh,
I feel. I feel so alone. Except trying to manage it to free China. Say some people don't even like the word I use. Some people, and I guess I even don't know them. They don't know me on social media. They will say, "You did not flee China. You came here for graduate school," but they did not understand the long process where we feel we were trapped, we were stuck, and we could not be free. And I basically had to, keep everything to myself and cheat the night to get out of China, get my party boss to give me permission to quit my job and to go apply for passport by being just a future graduate student here in the U.S. When it was possible. But they don't understand what kind of process we had to go through. Even though I did not literally flee, like walk on my feet, like people, and some coming here like that. But still, to me, it's like when I finally made it, it's like, oh, it's like I got out and I'm free, even though you come here with nothing. It's like borrow $100 and couldn't speak English. Did you feel that way when you actually got, even just the day you got the U.S. visa to leave China? You feel like there's a sense of like total liberations, like it really changed your mental attitude, your outlook about life.
Absolutely, absolutely. The day I got the U.S. visa, I have to, thank my American husband for that. So we met in Beijing and we got married in secret, and eventually I applied for a visa here, and all in secret. And yeah, I got granted. I was very, very thankful. I am still very, very thankful for that. Yeah, but the day I got granted the visa, it was like, I am going home, and that's how I felt. I am going home. I'm
You feel like
leaving.
you're going home to the United States, even though you have never been here.
Absolutely, yeah. I could, because I was born in a place I did not belong. The place, China was a big prison. It was a big prison for me, personally. So I when I got that visa, I was like, yes, um, I'm finally leaving prison. I'm finally going home where I belong. This is where I belong. Yeah.
Did you have nightmares like I do still occasionally? Even though I have been in this country since 1988, I still occasionally have this nightmare where I'm trapped. Like either I cannot get out, I have to duck the hole on the ground. I see the blue Pacific Ocean. I will make myself become a little mermaid and, just get into ocean, swim over. Or one time I dream about a boat is gone, lost boat, even though, you know, It's like, I never thought about taking the boat, but I lost the boat. I lost boats, like little tiny boat to the United States. Then you woke up in sweat to say, oh, thank God, it's nightmare. It's nightmare. I'm here. I'm here. Do you have still nightmares, that kind of, feeling? And I did that for like years and years.
Yeah, occasionally. In the earlier years, definitely a lot more frequent, and now it's becoming less and less frequent. But still, yeah, I remember maybe just 3 or 4 years ago, I had a nightmare where I was like forced to sing, like the group singing 集体合唱, like the group singing that they always put on, at performances for, for occasions, big holidays and all that. They always force you to go with everybody, stand together and sing the revolutionary songs together to show your loyalty. And I had a nightmare where I was forced to do that again. And that was like a reflection of a real event when I first started working at the radio station. That was in 1999, and that year in December was when Macau was returned to China. Right. When it was handed officially back to China. And of course, as the central government propaganda sector, we all had to perform, put on performances to celebrate it. So I was forced to go stand with everyone else to sing it. But I did not want to. Like, I felt that was disgusting, that was gross, that was not real. But my supervisor is like, oh, you are new comrades. You've just started working here. You have to, like, otherwise, we will give you punishment and whatever. So yeah, I had to, but
right, new comrade.
new comrades, yeah.
Oh,
so you have to prove yourself. Yeah, you have to prove yourself. You have to prove that you're committed to our cause, whatever. So I came up with a solution of my own to to basically answer to my own conscience, is that I would stand with them. I would just mouth the words without actually singing, because like in the group, nobody can tell if you're making a sound or not. So I actually did that. I pretended to be singing. So I did my show for them, but at the same time, I kind of sort of felt like I kept my own conscience clean by not actually singing. Yeah, so I had nightmares about that.
I know when you're forced to do something, it really affects you, mental happiness. And I mean, in order to get permission to quit my job, I had to change my attitude. And as a party member, to go to political studies, of course, every week I used to be sit down there quiet, not to say anything, not to participate, to say kumbaya to the party. But in order to butter up my boss, I had to participate. I had to say the things I did not want to say it. Yes, party is right. I support the party. This is great new policy. And, to show that I'm on the same page. And so my boss will pat me on the back to say, you have improved your attitude a lot recently, in order to ask for his mercy to allow me to quit my job and go to apply for my passport to come to the United States as a graduate student on my own time, on my own dime. But I did not own myself. I had to get, some party leader to basically almost like a beg to let me to quit my job. Now I'm participating. I'm like you're saying, but I'm talking. I'm becoming a cheerleader again. Basically, like when I was a young pioneer or Red Guard as student, to say, oh, it's like we have so much in common, even though you're like a lot younger, than me, but still just same, substantial dictatorship that we grew under. I'm just so glad you're here. For your life in America, we have to do another hour show probably. So would you like to say something to finish you today, just your China part of story?
Oh, I'm just grateful to you and to people who are like you, who's fighting a good fight. And yeah, I'm grateful to be here, and I'm so blessed in so many ways. Like, I know I'm more fortunate than a billion people there who are still suffering, what I had to suffer today. And yeah, I'm very happy to be here and very honored to join you, to make our voice heard.
Thank you so much. I have always appreciated you help me as a volunteer to put my YouTube videos out, and now you are actually doing a lot more. You put your face, your voice, your story out there publicly for the world to see. And we all love America. We love American people, and we still love also our own native country, the people especially. So I think we just feel like we have to do something as immigrants who know the truth, who experienced this before, who sees the writing on the wall. We cannot be quiet. We cannot be silent. And we just cannot live with ourselves, and especially our youth who really need to hear our stories like this. So if you like this, our immigrant stories, please share, like, and then more people to hear it and give us encouragement to continue this program. And find us on locals.com, Lilytown Williams, immigrants community, and become our supporter. And thank you very much and appreciate. Have a great 2023. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.